We are humans and we do not run. We are here to fight and win. Based on our findings, the Queen has the processing power equivalent to 20 human brains, possibly more. Fear not, our friends are on the way and they will save us all. In a struggle for survival, alliances must forge a path to victory or face annihilation. Survival, sacrifice, unity, will they prevail? The Human Republic's command center buzzed with urgency as distress signals flooded in. President Kendall Alvarez, her eyes steely with determination, called for an emergency meeting. The holographic table displayed the dire reality. The Eleni homeworld was under siege. Admiral Natasha Carter entered the briefing room, her presence commanding yet tempered by empathy. "Madam President," she started, "we can't ignore their plea for help. The insectoids are relentless." Alvarez nodded sharply. "Then we mobilize. No one stands alone." Meanwhile, in a cluttered lab, Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr pored over data projections. These Kerr, rubbing his tired eyes, added, "And deadly. Their queens have cognitive capacities that dwarf even the best of our AI." In the midst of this, preparation yielded a somber resolve. Soldiers strapped into their sleek suits, the hum of energy shields a backdrop to their grim faces. Families exchanged brief but poignant goodbyes, the weight of potential loss heavier than any armor. President Alvarez addressed the gathered forces, her voice unwavering. "We fight not just for our survival, but for humanity's legacy and our bond with the Eleni. Today, we stand united." Initial skirmishes erupted along the space corridors, laser fire and explosions turning the cold vacuum of space into a battlefield. Admiral Carter commanded with precision, her long black hair tightly bound as she barked orders with unwavering resolve. In an Eleni command chamber, Zaylon, the dignified ambassador, rallied his people. "Fear not. Our friends are on the way, and they will save us all." Aboard the lead ship, Carter and Eleni diplomats formulated a tactical plan, blending human and alien strategies. "Their central hive network is the key," Carter whispered to Zaylon. "Cut off the head, and the body will fail." As the stage set for the impending clash, Carter took a rare moment alone. Her striking blue eyes scanned the vastness of space, pondering the cost of failure. But in that solitude, derived strength. "We are humans and we do not run," she murmured to the stars. "We fight and we will win." The lab was a controlled chaos with screens flickering and specimens neatly catalogued. Dr. Olivia Harper pressed a gloved finger to her aching temple. "They're more coordinated than we thought, Ethan," she murmured, eyes not leaving the projection of an insectoid brain. Dr. Ethan Kerr leaned closer, his stubble more pronounced in the harsh lab light. "We're dealing with a neural network that rivals the complexity of 20 human minds," he said, voice tinged with awe and trepidation. Meanwhile, across the star-filled void, the Eleni homeworld busied itself with frantic preparations. Admiral Natasha Carter watched the fortifications being raised, her striking blue eyes scanning every detail. "We can't afford to overlook anything," she said, her tone a blend of command and encouragement. She had a reputation for steely resolve, and it showed in the disciplined flurry of activity around her. In a remote sector, a human recon team stumbled upon an unexpected sight, unusual formations among the insectoid forces. "What do you make of this, Jenkins?" one of the soldiers asked, pointing toward the eerie spectacle. Jenkins frowned. "Looks like they're adapting again. We need to get this intel back to HQ." Back at the fleet's command center, Admiral Carter received the report with grim satisfaction. "Let's show them we're not here to roll over," she declared. Her small-scale engagement, brilliantly executed, left the insectoid raiders scattered and boosted her troops' morale. "We're in this fight to win," she rallied them, a spark of hope lighting their tired faces. Zaylon's diplomatic chambers buzzed with quiet but intense dialogue. With the Xenon representatives finally on board, the coalition felt stronger. "Fear not," Zaylon reassured a room of anxious leaders. "Our reinforcements are on the way." Later, Dr. Olivia shared a newfound theory with her team. "What if we tap into their communication network?" she pondered aloud, excitement edging her voice. President Kendall Alvarez's holographic image flickered as she conducted earnest discussions with Xenon leaders. Her charisma and strategic insight further solidified their support, translating into much-needed resources and troops. Ilani citizens, their expressions softening in relief, expressed heartfelt gratitude to the human soldiers. The camaraderie was palpable, bridging interstellar divides. Yet amid this preparation, the Radiant Queen found herself in unsettling solitude. Her regal exoskeleton shimmered as she internalized the growing unease. Must I always obey the Hive's sovereign? Her thoughts wavered, a crack forming in her stoic facade. Back in the lab, Zaylin and Dr. Olivia discovered something profound, a vulnerability within the insectoid biology that could be their ace. This could change everything, Zaylin whispered, hope and urgency intertwining in his voice. As the stars spread their indifferent light, alliances strengthened, strategies evolved, and hearts prepared for the great conflict that loomed just beyond the horizon. The unseen threats were many, but so were the unseen strengths waiting to be unleashed. The echoes of past skirmishes seemed to reverberate through Admiral Natasha Carter's mind as she stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Arcadia. She watched the vastness of space, eyes scanning the holographic display. Leadership, she muttered to herself, isn't about titles. It's about the people we protect. Her thoughts drifted to old battles, the raw fear and the gut-wrenching decisions that had honed her into the resolute leader she was now. A soft chime interrupted her reverie. It was time. She tapped a command and the ceremonial hall came into view. Members of the fleet had gathered to honor their fallen. The speeches were somber, the silence heavy, but the resolve among the soldiers became palpable. They would fight not just for survival, but in memory of those who had given everything. President Kendall Alvarez, her holographic presence sharp and commanding, coordinated with other galactic leaders. We must anticipate their moves, she said, her voice carrying a steely edge. Defend the Ilani homeworld at all costs and prepare our outposts. Meanwhile, in the dimly lit lab, Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr were elbow-deep in data. Olivia, Kerr began, these patterns suggest a new Hive communication method. We need to integrate this into our tactical algorithms. Olivia's eyes sparkled with the dawning realization. This could change everything. Far away, amid the Hive's buzzing cauldron, the Hive's sovereign plotted an aggressive offensive, her mandibles clicking in cold calculation. Unbeknownst to her, the Radiant Queen confided her fears to a trusted ally. I question our path, she whispered, her eyes glimmering with unshed regret. Zaylin, ever the diplomat, rallied his people. The humans stand with us, he declared. Together we will carve our future from the jaws of adversity. The tension peaked when insectoid scouts breached the outer Ilani system. Alarms blared as tactical screens lit up. Carter's lips thinned. Position the fleet at Vartan's rim, she ordered. It was a gamble, one that would place lives at risk, but she had to trust her instincts. In that moment of dire preparation, President Alvarez's voice cut through the static. Defend our strongholds, every second counts. Through the swirling chaos of war, each character, human and alien, found themselves at a crossroads. Victory hung in the balance, shaped by the echoes of leadership and the resolve to face their greatest challenges yet. The crackle of incoming distress signals filled the bridge, painting a grim picture of the situation. All hands prepare for immediate engagement, she commanded, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The Republic fleet moved with precision, each soldier knowing the stakes. Out on the front lines, human and Ilani forces faced the insectoid onslaught head-on. Laser fire arced through the void, their brilliance illuminating the dark expanse of space. Stay coordinated, we can hold them back, he said, leveraging Ilani technology to boost their communication. It was a ballet of destruction, a grim dance choreographed by survival instincts and tactical genius. Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr watched from a secure observation deck, their data pads clutched tightly. They're more organized than we anticipated, she remarked, jotting down observations. Ethan nodded. It's fascinating in a horrifying sort of way. Amid the chaos, Admiral Carter initiated a daring counterattack. Focus fire on their command ship, break their coordination, she barked. Her strategy unfolded with precision. One well-placed hit could turn the tide. President Kendall Alvarez monitored the battle from a distant command center, issuing directives with the calm of seasoned leadership. Send additional support to the flank, she ordered, her gaze unwavering. The Radiant Queen, observing the battle from afar, felt a pang of conflict. For the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Could this relentless expansion be wrong? The carnage around her seeded an internal rebellion that she could no longer ignore. Suddenly, a critical system failed on one of the Alani ships, its lights flickering ominously. Human engineers with characteristic resilience rushed to assist. "We've got this," said one, wrench in hand, as they worked feverishly to repair the damage. For a brief moment, the battle lulled. It was a precarious respite. Medics flitted about, treating the wounded. Zalon and Admiral Carter huddled over a holomap, parsing the chaos into coherent data. "We need to adapt. They're learning our tactics," Zalon observed. Natasha nodded, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Then let's give them something new to learn." They weren't defeated, not yet. The first wave had tested their resolve, but it hadn't broken it. As the insectoid forces regrouped for another strike, so too did the human and Alani alliance. They knew the next clash was imminent, but they were ready. The price of failure was too high and their resilience too strong. The silence after the battle was a far cry from the chaos we had just endured. Bodies lay strewn amid the smoldering wreckage, the acrid stench of burnt metal and flesh hanging in the air. Admiral Carter, resolute yet visibly weary, surveyed the aftermath. "We've paid a heavy price," she thought aloud, her voice barely more than a whisper. Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr stood nearby, their minds far from rest despite the momentary calm. "Ethan, look at this!" Olivia exclaimed, excitement lacing her voice as she shared her recent findings. "It's a potential weak point in their command structure. If we can exploit it?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That's a big if," he murmured, his tired eyes sparking with a glimmer of hope nonetheless. Meanwhile, deep within the insectoid hive, the Radiant Queen was torn. She glanced at her brethren, their allegiance unshakable to the hive sovereign. Her inner turmoil was palpable. What if there is another way? She pondered, contemplating the unthinkable, reaching out to potential allies within her own empire. Back at the War Council, the tension was tangible. Ambushing their supply line could turn the tide, Admiral Carter proposed. President Alvarez nodded thoughtfully while Zalon, the Alani ambassador, offered his support. "It's risky, but we must not run from this challenge," he added, his eyes reflecting his steadfast belief in their cause. Engineers buzzed with activity, their quick hands and quicker minds working to develop new countermeasures. "Our latest data gives us an edge," one remarked, his voice tinged with cautious optimism. In the lab, Olivia's voice trembled as she attempted to communicate with a captured insectoid drone. "If we can understand them, we can find their weaknesses," she reasoned, her determination unwavering. The drone clicked and whirred, offering no immediate insight but sparking Olivia's relentless curiosity. Suddenly, the eerie wail of distress signals cut through the silence. "More insectoids are on approach," an officer reported. Anxiety electrified the air as the enormity of the situation settled upon them. "We need to gather intel on the Queen's fleet," Admiral Carter ordered, her voice steely. This wasn't just strategy, it was survival. Simultaneously, the Radiant Queen faced her own pivotal moment. Shadows of doubt clouded her vision, nudging her toward a path of potential rebellion. Could I truly challenge the Hive Sovereign? She questioned, her conflict brewing within. In every corner of this interstellar struggle, resilience became their lifeline, binding hesitant alliances and weaving hope through the fabric of impending doom. We huddled in the cramped briefing room, the low hum of the ship's engines making my teeth buzz. Admiral Natasha Carter stood at the helm of the room, her presence as unyielding as the Republic fleet's resolve. "Listen up," she began, her voice slicing through the tension like a photon blade. "This mission is all about reconnaissance. We need intel on the Insectoid Empire, and we're going to get it using advanced Alani tech." Zalon, the esteemed Alani diplomat, adjusted his prehensile tail and held up a sleek piece of alien technology. "This device will mask your presence, make you ghosts in their territory." Admiral Carter then laid out the decoy strategy in detail, a genius plan to redirect insectoid attention away from the recon team. "Remember," she said, her piercing blue eyes scanning each face, "we're not here to make friends. We're here to find weaknesses." In the heart of the insectoid domain, our recon team maneuvered through enemy lines, tension crackling like static in the void. Almost discovered by an insectoid patrol, we held our breath as they hovered inches from our cloaked ship, only to move on, oblivious. a near miss that left us all sweating in our space boots. Back on the ship, Dr. Olivia Harper was knee-deep in decryption efforts, decoding bizarre signals from a captured drone. This insectoid tech, they've got the computing power of 20 human brains, she mused, her glasses slipping down as she squinted at the datapad. But there's something deeper here, a pattern. Meanwhile, on the insectoid homeworld, the Radiant Queen's isolation deepened. Her doubts about the Hive Sovereign's ruthless expansion plans grew, gnawing at her. Suddenly, in an unprecedented move, she reached out to our recon team, offering a cryptic message that hinted at internal strife within the Hive. With the new intel in hand, Admiral Carter prepared for an imminent engagement, her mind sharp and strategic. She shared the critical updates with President Kendall Alvarez, who adjusted the coalition's strategy in real time. "Divide and conquer," Alvarez murmured, a glint of resolve in her eyes. "They won't know what hit them." As we readied for the next phase, a flicker of hope and humor danced through the grim resolve. After all, our humanity, unyielding, stood as our greatest weapon. The command center buzzed with tension as Admiral Natasha Carter pored over the latest intel from the recon team. Her fingers traced the routes of the insectoid fleet on the holographic display, her eyes narrowing with determination. Beside her, President Kendall Alvarez's voice boomed over the comms, delivering a motivational speech that electrified the room. "Remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves, but for every sentient being in our alliance. We must stand united or we will fall divided." Zaylon, the Alani ambassador, monitored his own forces from a separate console, communicating swift orders that ensured their coordinated assault would be seamless. "Prepare the crystal beams," he instructed, his voice a calming presence in the storm of preparations. In the adjoining lab, Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr were a whirlwind of activity. Olivia's curly hair bounced as she reviewed data, while Ethan's tired eyes gleamed with a newfound excitement. "Based on our findings," Olivia said, her voice tinged with urgency, "we can target the neural nodes. It'll disrupt their chain of command." Just then, an encrypted message flashed on Olivia's datapad. It was from the Radiant Queen. Her words were tentative but clear. "I cannot openly defy the Sovereign, but I can mislead her forces. Use this to your advantage." Carter's orders rang through the fleet. "Execute the plan. Catch them off guard." Battleships and fighters roared to life, engines flaring as they hurtled toward the insectoid armada. The void exploded in chaos, laser beams and projectile cannons lighting up the darkness. The coalition forces fought with a ferocity that belied their smaller numbers. Ethan and Olivia watched in awe as the tactical brilliance they had helped craft unfolded before their eyes. Zaylon's diplomatic skills shone as he directed Xenon reinforcements, their swift arrival turning the tide. Yet, the Hive Sovereign struck back with a savage fury, testing the coalition's grit. Admiral Carter's voice cut through the tumult as she rallied her troops. "We are humans, and we do not run. Fight to the last breath." The battle teetered on the edge of disaster, but the Allied forces pushed through with grim resolve. As the insectoid flagship exploded in a blaze of light, a collective cheer erupted. The price had been steep, but the momentum had shifted. For now they had turned the tide. The battlefield was eerily silent, an unsettling calm after the storm of blaster fire and insectoid screams. Bodies lay strewn across the terrain, both human and Alani, their faces frozen in the final moments of agony and defiance. Admiral Natasha Carter stood tall, her eyes scanning the wounded and the fallen, each life a stark reminder of the cost of the day's victory. "Hearts of steel, that's what we need," she murmured to herself. Allied medics hurried about, pausing only briefly to wipe sweat and grit from their brows. Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr combed through data on their pads, a burgeoning sense of urgency palpable between them. "Ethan," Olivia said, tapping rapidly on her screen, "I found something in the Queen's neural patterns. We might have a way to end this war." In a quiet corner, Zaylon, the Alani ambassador, consoled his distraught people. He radiated calm, his soothing eyes bringing some measure of peace. "The humans have been our shield," he whispered. "Their resilience is our hope." The Radiant Queen, however, was not so fortunate. Her clandestine communication with the Allies had reached the Hive Sovereign. Severe repercussions loomed, whispering promises of pain. Memorials were swiftly erected, and the air thickened with sorrow as Admiral Carter addressed her troops. "We honor them today," she began, "not merely for their sacrifice, but for igniting a fire within us that will not die." Heads bowed, tears glistened, yet resolve hardened. President Kendall Alvarez stood before the Senate, her voice echoing through the hall. "Today we regroup, reforge our alliances, and push forward united. This victory, though costly, is our stepping stone to ultimate triumph." In the strategic war room, Admiral Carter and Zalon studied star maps. "We must strike here," said Zalon, pointing with his prehensile tail. "Cut the head off the serpent." Just then, Olivia burst in, her eyes blazing. "I've got it, the key to ending the war. It's in the Hive's neural nexus. We can disrupt their network." For a fleeting moment there was silence, then a collective breath, the sound of hope being dared once more. The cost was high, but so perhaps would be the rewards of their indomitable spirit and hard-earned victory. The tension aboard the flagship was palpable, a subtle hum of anticipation that seemed to resonate through every metal bulkhead. Admiral Natasha Carter stood at the heart of the bridge, her striking blue eyes scanning the faces of her crew. "Today we don't just fight for ourselves, we fight for every world yet untarnished by the Hive," she began, her voice firm yet inspiring. There was no room for doubt, not now, not ever. In the adjacent lab, Dr. Olivia Harper and Dr. Ethan Kerr were hunched over a holographic map, whispering furiously. "Based on our findings, if we can disrupt the Hive Sovereign's neural network, we might just tilt the odds," Olivia said, pushing up her glasses. Ethan nodded, a fatigued but determined light in his eyes. "It's risky, but it's our best shot." Zalon, the Alani ambassador, convened his forces with serene authority. "Unity is our strength," he declared, his fur-covered form a calming presence amidst the chaos of war preparations. The Alani soldiers nodded resolutely, their prehensile tails twitching in anticipation. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the insectoid hierarchy, the Radiant Queen plotted her rebellion. Marginalized by the Hive Sovereign, she whispered her intentions to her closest aides. "For too long we've wallowed in the blood of conquest," she murmured, her regal antennae twitching. "No more." President Kendall Alvarez's small frame seemed to swell with purpose as she coordinated the mobilization of reserve forces. "Every sector must hold," she commanded, her determined eyes betraying no fear. Failure was not an option. The coalition fleet made its final jump, the stars blurring into streaks of light before revealing the horrific expanse of the insectoid home system. Explosions and laser fire erupted almost immediately, turning the void of space into a frenetic battlefield. "Activate the disruption device now!" Dr. Olivia's voice crackled through the comms. The device sparked to life, sending waves of chaos through the insectoid ranks. Amidst the confusion, the Radiant Queen struck, her rebellion causing cracks in the once impenetrable Hive leadership. Through the cacophony, Admiral Carter's voice echoed with unwavering resolve. "We hold this line together, for humanity, for the Alani, for every life in the galaxy." And in that moment, surrounded by the grim realities of war, a spark of hope ignited, shining brighter than any star. We're at the heart of their stronghold now. The fleet had pushed through endless waves of insectoid ships, each battle more grueling than the last. But here they were, facing the Hive Sovereign's lair, intimidating and pulsating with bioorganic defenses. "Stay focused, people," she urged, her striking blue eyes narrow with determination. Carter's uniform shimmered under the strategic lighting, metals glittering ominously. "Remember, we are humans and we do not run. We are here to fight and win." Dr. Olivia Harper glanced at Dr. Ethan Kerr. "You think our little experiment will work, Ethan?" she asked, her tone light but her eyes betraying a flicker of concern. "Based on our findings," Ethan responded, peering over his datapad, "the Queen has the processing power equivalent to 20 human brains, possibly more. Let's hope that's enough to take her down." In another part of the command center, the Radiant Queen's rebellion had thrown the insectoid forces into chaos. Her defiance against the Hive Sovereign sparked hope in those who doubted their violent ways. As she tore through the defenses, she muttered, "I have no choice. I must obey the Hive Sovereign." Yet, her actions said otherwise. Admiral Carter, using this disruption, ordered a final daring assault. The coalition forces stormed the command center, a whirl of energy blasts and desperate cries of resistance. Zalon's voice came through. "Fear not. Our friends are on the way and they will save us all." His diplomatic finesse had coordinated a multi-species attack, exploiting weaknesses Dr. Olivia and Ethan had identified. As the Hive Sovereign fell, her massive form crumbling, a collective sigh rippled through the Allied forces. Victory was at hand. Amidst the chaos, the Radiant Queen extended an olive branch. We offer peace. Let this madness end. President Kendall Alvarez's announcement came soon after, echoing through the battleground and into hearts. The war is over. Cooperation begins now. In the aftermath, Carter reflected as she watched the relief wash over battle-weary faces. Unity had prevailed. Sacrifices would not be forgotten, and the bonds forged in this grim crucible offered a fragile yet hopeful path forward.